the international situation at the time, 1800. Negros Occidental was colonized as well as with the rest of the country by the Spaniards from 1521 on to 1898, 350 or so years. I call it a chiaroscuro of pluses and minuses, a positive and negative influences from the Spanish colonial rule, Christianity, etc. But the international situation in Europe at that time were really changing. Libertarian ideas, French Revolution, etc. were happening. And our leaders in Negros, some of them were able to go to school, in fact, in Europe, in Spain. So they brought back these ideas to the Philippines. Many Spanish people from Spain, both in government and in the private sector, unfortunately including some in the clergy, were seen in a very negative way. And in fact, were perceived by many Filipinos, Negrenses included, as abusive and oppressive.
The Revolution of Negros did not come into play until the later part of 1897, when the Spanish government in Negros started to arrest prominent individuals in the province. This is the result of the Revolution of Luzon. By early 1898, when the Iloilo Revolutionary Government or committee in Iloilo started to tap the Negrosanos, when the leaders here of the planters went to Iloilo, they did not discuss about sugar. They discussed of a coordinated attack or coordinated uprising. When they came back here in Negros, the leaders of the revolution started to organize. In Silay, they started to raise funds because it appears from these records that Silay was to initiate fundraising.
They had a house there owned by Leandro Locsin. He had a botica there. He listed the donations of many leaders here for the revolution that they were thinking of as medicine. But they finally decided that they could not continue with the situation here.
The other planters' associations began to organize their haciendas. Each hacienda was considered to be a battalion or a company, depending upon its size. And the hacendero was designated as either teniente militar or capitan militar. The letter was sent here and received by Anisito Lacson. He received it on November 3. And the information says on the 5th of November, the Iloilo rebels will attack Haro. And in order to prevent the Spaniards from sending troops from Bacolod or Negros to help Iloilo, Negros is supposed to also begin the revolution. The revolution was to take place in the morning of November 5. When he received the information, Lacson immediately informed Juan Araneta in Maao.
By the 4th of November, the Negros leaders had fanned out to their respective areas and prepared their forces. You know, they didn't have too many armaments. They planned something that has given us already a reputation of being a very good strategist. Some people call it bluff. From San Carlos all the way down to Hinubaan or Sipala area right now, were prepared and in fact participated. So when the order was given here for the Silay and Talisay forces under General Aniceto Lacson and the southern group led by General Juan Araneta were about to go, they gave the order and started marching on the 5th of November.
In the morning of the 5th, the troops from Matabang have crossed the Matabang River and they clashed. There was an exchange of gunfire and 3 soldiers of the Spaniards were killed and several were wounded. Araneta marched from Maao with his workers or army to Bago. By the time Bago has already been surrounded and Bago surrendered. And Araneta declared their independence and the revolution. And they marched towards Sumag. When they arrived in Sumag, the Guardia Civils were no longer there. So they began again to march to Bacolod. Arriving in Bacolod, where you have now the Lupit River, the Magsungay Grande, they arrived there late in the afternoon, and they moved into Lupit and stayed for the night. The forces of Lacson battled the Guardia Civil.
Was it totally bloodless? There were a few shootings. In fact, few soldiers were killed, Spanish side mainly. General De Castro of the Spanish command here in Negros was frantically trying to organize his own people here with the Spanish community in Bacolod. They were based here in the cathedral. They were looking at both sides, and they could see a lot of men and both sides moving towards Bacolod. And they didn't have too many soldiers. That they saw that, especially the group here from the south, they were carrying long cannons. They looked like cannons from a distance. But actually, it turned out to be rolled sawali or amakan, painted black. So they looked like cannons. Their firearms were bamboo, coconut palm, painted also black to look like rifles.
Noon of November 5, the Castro received messages that all the civil guards in the towns have surrendered and that all the towns had been captured. In the afternoon of the 5th, Bacolod was already surrounded, but the rebels from Talisay did not attack Bacolod. They waited for the troops from Sumag. So it was already late in the afternoon. Araneta halted his troops after crossing Lupit River. The armies usually pause for the night. Early in the morning of the 6th, the Ilustrados in Bacolod starting to pressure the Castro to surrender. And they sent an emissary to Araneta for a peace talk.
Jose and his brother, Lusuriaga brothers, were trying to work out an arrangement whereby there were no fighting, just negotiate and surrender. It must be. It led to that.
He realized after lunch that there is no way, because he was given an ultimatum that the troops, the rebels, will attack Bacolod after lunch. He asked that a group of Spaniards and the rebels should come into a meeting to draft the terms of surrender. And so the signing was set for 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the house of Luis Luzuriaga.
They arranged for a simple turnover of Spanish command to the Negrenses. The surrender on November 6th was the end of the Spanish command in Negros.
Being a descendant of Aniceto Lacson, I look up at him really and I say, wow, amazing man. He was a very, very friendly and charming person. According to my grandmother, he made friends with everyone. And he would invite everybody to stay in his big house here, which we call the Casa Grande. His charm, you know, he was good to the people. He was very good to his family. And at the same time, he fought for what he believed in. He was also very close to Jose Rizal. I believe they were classmates in Ateneo. I do know that he had a blood pact with Andres Bonifacio. He was a Katipunero. So he was very well connected. From what I've heard, he was a very simple man. And that's the beauty of it, you know, that without being so arrogant or a determined leader, that's it, I'm never giving up. He knew when to surrender. And at the same time, he was able to gather all the Negrenses to stand up for something that he really believed in, against all odds. It's quite amazing now that I've gotten to know him very well through the history books, of course, and stories from our elder. He really was not a military man, but because of the relationship with Spain at that time that had turned sour, he found himself with that desire that he had to do something. It was time. He realized that there was a lot of abuse also being done all over the Philippines. And it's amazing how he became actually an important leader.
To answer a call, not only General Juan Araneta, of course, all of those people who walked, and from Talisay, from the Pincer, from Murcia, all those people who answered that call are all heroes. Because to answer a call to duty, knowing you might die, is already heroism by itself. So it's not only General Juan Araneta. That's why when we had this museum, we have a community museum, because General Juan could not have gone to the war without his people. That's why we celebrate Cinco De Noviembre with all the parades, with all the, because that started like General Juan Araneta would, every Cinco de Noviembre, would invite those and reunion. They always have that reunion, and the city just adopted it as a fiesta. General Juan was a very strict person, but he was always kind. So I guess the value that he has stepped down to us, all of us, is kindness. Well, when you put it this way, without Cinco de Noviembre, we would just have fallen back to the Spaniards and the Americans, with Spaniards specifically. I guess if we did not put up in revolt, then where were we? Today, life is different. Events, circumstances are different. We may be called into something, like for example, maybe another EDSA or whatever. Maybe that is our calling. Or economic heroes, cultural heroes. That's what we are today. It's not the same as the past when you really have to give up your life and you have to, but maybe in a sense, we always react to our environment, to our time.
Now that historical documents are available, I think we should go into documentary research. This celebration will be authentic. History is a very difficult process. And because of the absence of many materials, sometimes we just speculate. But if what we did now, and in fact I still continue to do, is to keep on researching. It's a very difficult process, and it is expensive in a way. But our government does not have a historical consciousness or historical sense. And that, I think, requires a lot of correction and change.
A modern Negrense hero, wow, I can tell you, they can be heroes in many, many ways. It's just there, waiting for us to take it. The only thing we have to do is take that first step and do something for the better of Negros. We are all heroes in many ways. We just have to let it come out. And I see that in my life every day here. And I see the need for heroes, more heroes in this island. This is such a beautiful island and so blessed. I consider myself the luckiest person to come from this island. Not only because of my ancestors, but because this island has so much to offer. And for me, a present hero is someone who doesn't take this island for granted.
Ang siyang hindi lumingon sa pinanggalingan, hindi makararating sa paroroonan. If we do not look back to our history, if we do not learn from the lessons of history, we are liable to make the same mistakes today. Ambet Ocampo, a very localized historian, said, among other things, history does not repeat itself. We, the people, repeat history. All the rest of us can be real heroes in our own small, individual, personal, or communitarian ways for the love of our community, our country.